Auburn is in the middle of a tough stretch right now. We're just coming off of a loss to Texas A&M on the road, and so far this season we've struggled on the road. We've done well at home, but we've not been tested at home. Well, that test comes this week. We're going to be tested pretty heavily this week because we play number one Georgia. This is going to be a difficult game, but I don't think it's an impossible game. My biggest frustrations from last week, and probably a lot of fans, come with the offense overall. I think our defense looks really good. Just unfortunately, when they stay on the field as much as they've had to, there is a breaking point. They're going to get tired. They're going to make mistakes. But overall, I've been very impressed with the defense. We've had some good plays. Last week, we lost to Texas A&M 27-10. Our only touchdown came off of a scoop and score from Eugene Asante, where he did not stiff arm Jimbo Fisher. But he still scored the touchdown, and that's what matters. So our offense looked very just anemic last week. They could not get hardly anything done, couldn't get the passing game going, couldn't really get the running game going. There were flashes that it looked really good. But for the most part, we struggled. Looking at the stats from last week, we had only 200 total yards. 200. That is nothing. And if we have a performance like that against Georgia, obviously we cannot win. What I'm hoping, though, is I'm hoping that Peyton Thorne figures something out, because I do expect Peyton Thorne to walk out on the field as the starter. That may frustrate some people, and I understand that. But I do expect him to walk out on the field at the start of the game. I think Hugh Freeze is starting to feel some of the pressure. And if you listen to his press conferences this week, it's very evident he's feeling the pressure of the Auburn fan base, of, probably just the media, everybody who's out there talking about Auburn. The pressure is starting to build because, unfortunately, as the Auburn head coach, you've got a lot of scrutiny on you. People are going to scrutinize everything you do. And so now, even though this is a season where I only expected the team to win 6 to 8 games, there's going to be some losses. And we're in that stretch of the season where a lot of those losses are going to happen. So this is where if we're going to lose, we're going to have a tough time. This is the stretch, September, October, where I think we're going to have a very tough time. This weekend is no exception. Today is no exception versus Georgia. Our passing game, though, going back to that, we only had 56 yards passing versus Texas A&M. That's pitiful, and that's not going to work. We really need to be closer to like 200, over 200, almost 300 yards a game passing if we're ever going to be competitive in the passing game. And right now, we're not seeing that. Georgia is seeing that. Georgia, with their offense, does have that. But we're not there yet. We've had, like I said, we've had moments where we've looked really good. Our first game versus UMass was pretty good. When we played Samford, both games at home, we looked good. But on the road versus Cal and on the road versus Texas A&M, we struggled. So now this is our first home game against a good opponent. This is also Georgia's first road game. So I'm hoping the hostile environment, that's going to have a little bit of an effect on Georgia. Going back to the stats, our rushing yards last week, we had 144 versus Texas A&M. We've got to get our running game going. We've got to get the rushing game going a lot more. Now, the bad thing is that Damari Alston, he's out. He's not going to be in this game. He's out for, I don't think they've said a definitive timeline for him. But he is out. He got hurt versus Texas A&M. So now we're down to Jarquez Hunter. We've got Brian Battie, Brian Battie looked really good last week, I will say that. And then we still have Jeremiah Cobb. But we've got to get the rushing game going early. And then with the passing game, we just need something to happen. So now I'm going to get to my biggest concern. My biggest concern, and this is everyone's concern for the most part, my biggest concern is Peyton Thorne. I'm not to the point yet where I'm going to say he's not the guy, but today we're going to find out if he's the guy. I have some major concerns. I feel like he's probably not going to show up today like we need him to. He looks scared every time I see him in the game. Even versus Cal, he looked scared. He looks like he's panicking in that pocket. And our offensive line is doing better. They're not perfect. They're definitely better than last season. But Peyton Thorne, he just looks like he's rushed. He's panicked. He's not making it through his reads. He makes it to like the first read, maybe the second. But he's not making it through those progressions. And then he's just not getting the passes off that he needs to. And when he does, he's overthrowing our guys who are wide open. I think it was Jay Fair last week who was wide open. And if he hit him, it was a touchdown. No doubt. Would have been a touchdown. So he's got to hit when these guys are open because they're getting open. The passing game it's not a problem of the receivers getting open right now. We're seeing that that's happening. But you've got to hit the guys. You've got to get the ball close to their hands. Yes, there's been some drops by receivers. Yes, there's been some bad plays by receivers. But it's a lot more than that. And the biggest problem I'm seeing is with the quarterback. Quarterback's got to have the confidence. You've got to be the guy out there to be the leader. You've got to take control of the game and lead your team down the field. And Peyton Thorne is not doing it right now. Now, this can also be a coaching problem. Are the play calls, are they doing enough early on to build his confidence, to kind of settle him down? Because he's got to be settled down. He's not right now. So how can they put Peyton Thorne in a position to settle him down quicker against Georgia? That's going to be tough because you're playing the number one team in the country. But there's some things they can do to settle him down, calm him down, get him some success early on. I don't know why Auburn has not figured out a crossing pattern yet. Just do the short intermediate passes, crossing behind the defensive line. Like, what are we doing? But we've got to get some of these short passes going to build his confidence up, and we're not doing that. So if he can get that confidence built, if we can get the running game going, Jarquez, he had some moments last week that looked pretty good, but we've got to get some consistency with the running game, and things should start to click. Now, what do I expect to happen? Do I expect that Peyton Thorne is going to get in the game and settle down and everything's going to click together versus the number one team in the country? I honestly don't. I think he could look better, but I think he's going to be on a very short leash this week. I think Hugh Freeze is starting to feel the pressure a little bit. I think he knows that if Peyton Thorne starts panicking, he's not putting it together, he has a couple of drives and it's not looking good, or maybe a whole quarter, I think he's going to pull him. And then the question is he putting in Robbie or is he putting in Holden? I personally think he's going to go with Robbie and give Robbie an extended amount of time to play during this game. So I think by, depending on how this game goes, we could see a lot of Robbie Ashford. That's not definitive. That's not for sure. But I just don't see that we have a quarterback who's struggled against Cal, who's not a good team. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Cal's not a good team. Struggled against Cal on the road. And then could not make a pass versus Texas A&M. I'm sorry, 56 yards, that's nothing. So we couldn't make a pass. We couldn't complete a pass. And then we think suddenly he's going to put it together against the number one team just because we're at home? I just don't see that happening. So I think this is the game. This is really going to be it's decision time for Coach Hugh Freeze. It is time to figure out who you're riding with. You're riding with Peyton Thorne. You're riding with Robbie Ashford, or are we going to see something different with Holden Garner? I don't think this is the time for Holden Garner yet, even though I would love to see how he did if he played a whole half. I just don't think we're going to get to see that, especially not against Georgia. So expect to see Robbie if Peyton Thorne can't put it together early. Outside of that, I expect to see a lot of Jarquez Hunter. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot more. If Hugh Freeze is smart, I think we're going to see a lot more up-tempo style offense. Georgia's had a little bit of trouble with that against some of the teams they've played this year. So I think they've noticed that, and they're going to go a little more up-tempo. They don't want to go too up-tempo that they're not using any of the clock, but I think they will try to speed the game up a little bit because they've seen that Georgia has had problems with that this year. And then ultimately, looking at our defense, I think our defense is solid. Eugene Asante, I think he's going to have an incredible game. If we can get a couple of turnovers from the defense that put us in good field position or end up in points, I think that's our only chance of actually winning this game or even just staying in this game and keeping this thing competitive. So our defense is going to have to get the ball. If they don't get the ball, we have no chance. So if they can get that ball back, they can get us in good field position, that is where we might have a chance to keep this thing interesting. Otherwise, if Peyton Thorne freezes up, if Hugh Freeze doesn't pull him and put Robbie Ashford or Holden in, if we can't get the running game going, if we can't get more than 56 yards passing, there's no chance in this game. So ultimately, what do I think will happen? I expect that I do not expect us to win this game. I think we're going to be outmatched. They're going to have better talent, and we just haven't done enough this season for me to see that we've put the pieces together enough to win this game. Georgia's not a perfect team by any stretch of the imagination, but they have their pieces put together a lot more, especially on the offense. Their offense does start out a little slower, so if we can capitalize on that and keep them to 7 points or less in the first quarter, which is historically what they've done this season, and we can put some points up early, that could keep things interesting. But ultimately, I just don't think we're going to be able to do enough across the course of the game to win. I do expect it to be... I personally think we're going to lose by 2 touchdowns. I'm not going to give you a score, but I do expect us to lose by about 2 touchdowns. I think our defense is going to keep us in it. I don't expect this to be an overly high-scoring game, but I just don't have enough evidence yet to believe that our offense is going to put the pieces together against Georgia today. Let me know what you think about my comments down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear what you think. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and I will see you in the next one.